The Ghost of the Vineyard. The sun hung low over Napa Valley, casting golden streaks across rows of grapevines that stretched like an emerald sea. Claire Hammond stood at the edge of her winery, Hammond Estates, her boots sinking into the soft earth. At 42, she'd poured everything into this place, her savings, her heart, her dreams, after inheriting it from her late uncle, a man she barely knew. The winery was her fresh start, a chance to escape the corporate grind of San Francisco and build something real. But today, as she surveyed the sprawling estate before a major wine tasting event, an uneasy feeling gnawed at her. The old barn, sagging under years of neglect, needed to be cleared out, and time was running short. Claire had hired Mia, a local college student, to help with the cleanup. Mia was a wiry 19-year-old with a quick smile and a work ethic that impressed Claire. She'd met her at the Napa farmers market, where Mia sold homemade jams to pay for her viticulture studies. "I'll have that barn spotless by Friday," Mia had promised, her eyes bright with determination. Claire trusted her. The kid had a spark, a hunger to prove herself. But as Claire drove into town to pick up supplies, her phone buzzed in the cup holder. It was Mia, her name flashing on the screen. Claire answered, expecting a quick update. "Miss Hammond?" Mia's voice was a whisper, shaky and thin. Is anyone else supposed to be at the winery?" Claire's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "No, Mia. It's just you today. Why? What's wrong?" A long pause followed, filled with Mia's uneven breathing. "There's someone in the barn. I saw a woman. She was standing by the old barrels just staring at me. She had this long dress all faded and her hair was all wild. Then she just vanished into the shadows." Claire's heart thudded. The barn was locked, always had been since she moved in. "Mia, get out of there. Wait by the main house. I'm on my way." She hung up, called the Napa County Sheriff's Office, and floored the gas pedal, her SUV kicking up dust on the winding valley road. By the time Claire arrived, a sheriff's cruiser was already parked near the main house. Mia sat on the porch steps, her face pale, clutching a water bottle like a lifeline. Two deputies, one a grizzled veteran named Torres, and the other a younger officer, emerged from the barn. "Nothing out of the ordinary," Torres said, adjusting his hat. "No signs of a break-in, no footprints, nothing disturbed. Probably just the light playing tricks. Old places like this can feel spooky." Mia shook her head, her voice barely above a whisper. "I saw her, Miss Hammond. She didn't look real, like a shadow, but solid." Claire placed a hand on Mia's shoulder, trying to steady her own nerves. The barn was old, built in the 1920s, and it creaked with every gust of wind. Maybe Mia was tired imagining things, but Claire couldn't shake the image of a woman in a faded dress, lingering in her mind like a ghost. That evening, after Mia left and the deputies drove off, Claire stood in the barn alone. The air was thick with the scent of aged wood and fermenting grapes. She flicked on her flashlight, sweeping the beam across dusty crates and rusted tools. Nothing seemed out of place, but the silence felt heavy, oppressive. As she turned to leave, her foot caught on a loose floorboard. It popped up with a creak, revealing a small hidden compartment. Inside was a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed and brittle. Claire's hands trembled as she opened it. The handwriting was delicate, feminine, dated 1973. "They think they can silence us," the first entry read. "The vineyard is theirs, but the truth is mine. I'll hide it here, where no one looks." The journal belonged to a woman named Elena Ruiz, a vineyard worker who vanished after a labor dispute with the original owners, the Warrens. Claire's uncle had bought the estate from them in the 1980s. The entries spoke of long hours, unfair wages, and a strike that turned violent. Elena wrote of a man, Victor Warren, who threatened her after she rallied workers to demand better conditions. The final entry was chilling. "He says I'll regret it. I saw him with a shovel last night, digging by the old oak. I'm scared." Claire's stomach churned. She knew the oak tree, gnarled and ancient at the edge of the vineyard. It was a landmark, a selling point for tourists. But now it felt like a gravestone. She closed the journal, her mind racing. Was Elena the woman Mia saw? A ghost? Or something else? Claire couldn't sleep that night, the journal's words echoing in her head. She decided to keep it from Mia for now. She didn't want to scare her further, but she couldn't ignore it. The next morning, Claire called Mia to check in. "I'm okay," Mia said, though her voice was still shaky. "But I'm not going back in that barn alone." Claire didn't blame her. She hired a local historian, Dr. Paulson, to dig into the winery's past. Paulson, a wiry man in his 60s with a passion for Napa's history, arrived with a stack of old newspapers. The Warren family was powerful back then, he said, spreading clippings on Claire's kitchen table. They owned half the valley's vineyards, but the 1973 strike was ugly. Workers claimed abuse, and Elena Ruiz was their leader. She disappeared right after. Police thought she skipped town, maybe fled to Mexico. Her family never believed it. Claire showed him the journal, omitting Mia's sighting. Paulson's eyes widened. "This is big, Claire. Elena was a firebrand, but the Warrens had clout. If she was threatening to expose something, they'd have motive to make her disappear." He paused, lowering his voice. There were rumors Victor Warren was skimming profits, maybe even smuggling wine. If Elena knew, she was a liability. That afternoon, Claire walked to the old oak, the journal tucked under her arm. The tree's shadow stretched long in the fading light, its roots twisting into the earth like secrets. She dare not dig, not yet. But she noticed something odd, a patch of soil, softer than the rest, like it had recently been disturbed. Her heart raced. She called Mia, asking her to come back the next day with a friend for safety. "We'll clean the barn together," Claire said, trying to sound calm. "I'll be there the whole time." But that night, strange things started happening. Claire woke to the sound of glass clinking in the tasting room. She grabbed a flashlight and crept downstairs, her pulse pounding. The room was empty, but a bottle of Merlot had fallen from the rack, rolling across the floor. The label was one of her uncle's first vintages, from 1985. She picked it up, noticing a faint handprint smudged on the glass, too small to be hers. Her breath caught. She locked the tasting room and slept with the lights on. The next day, Mia arrived with her friend Jake, a burly ag student with a skeptical grin. They tackled the barn, sorting through old barrels and crates. Claire stayed close, watching Mia's nervous glances. Around noon, Jake called out, "Hey, Miss Hammond, check this out." He'd found a locked chest buried under a pile of tarps. It was heavy, its brass lock rusted but intact. Claire's hands shook as she pried it open with a crowbar. Inside were faded photographs of workers in the vineyard, Elena among them, her dark eyes fierce. There was also a bundle of letters tied with twine, addressed to Elena from her sister Maria. The last letter, dated 1974, read, "I know you're still out there. Please come home. We'll fight this together." Claire's throat tightened. Maria believed Elena was alive, even a year after her disappearance. But why hide the chest? And why was it buried in the barn? As they worked, Mia gasped, pointing to the far corner. "There! I saw her again, the woman in the dress." Jake laughed it off, but Claire's skin prickled. She scanned the shadows, but saw nothing. Still, the air felt charged, like a storm was brewing. That evening, Claire called Paulson again. "I think Elena's sister knew something," she said, describing the letters. Paulson promised to track down Maria, who still lived in Napa. Meanwhile, Claire couldn't stop thinking about the soft patch by the oak. Against her better judgment, she grabbed a shovel from the shed and started digging. The soil was loose, unnaturally so, and after a few minutes, her shovel hit something hard. It was a small metal box, locked but dented. Inside were pay stubs, all in Elena's name, dated after her supposed disappearance. Someone had been paying her, secretly, for years? Claire's mind spun. Was Elena alive after 1973, hidden on the estate? Or was this a cover-up? She called the sheriff's office again, and Deputy Torres returned with a forensics team. They cordoned off the oak, digging deeper. Claire watched from a distance, her heart in her throat. Hours later, Torres approached, his face grim. "We found remains," he said. "Human, female. Too early for DNA, but they've been here a long time." Claire felt sick. She showed Torres the journal and the pay stubs. If this is Elena, someone kept her alive for a while, then buried her here. Why? Torres promised answers, but Claire couldn't wait. She drove to Maria's address, a modest bungalow on the edge of Napa. Maria, now in her 70s, opened the door, her eyes, so like Elena's, filled with tears when Claire mentioned the journal. "I knew she didn't leave us," Maria said, her voice cracking. "Victor Warren threatened her, said she would ruin the winery if she talked. I thought she ran, but maybe he kept her here." Claire's blood ran cold. The lights, the sightings, the pay stubs, it all pointed to one thing. Elena had been kept alive, hidden, maybe even forced to work in secret. But by whom? Her uncle? Victor? Someone else? She returned to the winery, determined to search the barn again. Mia and Jake joined her, armed with flashlights. As they sifted through the crates, Jake found a hidden panel in the barn's back wall. Behind it was a narrow staircase leading to a cellar Claire never knew existed. The air in the cellar was damp, smelling of earth and decay. At the far end was a cot, a lantern, and a stack of notebooks, all in Elena's handwriting. The final notebook entry, dated 1978, read, "He says I can never leave. The vines are my prison. If anyone finds this, tell Maria I'm sorry." Claire's knees buckled. Elena had been kept here, alive, for at least 5 years after her disappearance. But who was he? As they emerged from the cellar, Mia screamed. A figure stood in the barn doorway. A woman, thin and frail in a faded dress. Her hair was wild, her eyes hollow. Claire froze, thinking it was Elena's ghost, but then the woman spoke, her voice hoarse. "You found her, my mother." It was Sophia, Elena's daughter, now in her 50s. She'd been living in the shadows of the vineyard, tending the hidden cellar, guarding her mother's legacy. Sophia explained. Victor had locked Elena in the cellar, forcing her to manage the smuggled wine. When Elena died, Sophia, then a teenager, escaped, but returned years later, unable to let go. She'd been the one moving bottles, leaving handprints, keeping the secret alive. Claire called Torres, and Sophia told her story to the police. The remains were confirmed as Elena's, and the evidence, notebooks, pay stubs, and Sophia's testimony pointed to Victor Warren's crimes. The winery's reputation took a hit, but Claire vowed to make it right. She published Elena's notebooks as a memoir, The Vines of Truth, under Elena's name, with all proceeds going to Maria and Sophia. The book became a sensation, exposing the dark side of Napa Valley's wine industry and honoring Elena's courage. Claire kept the winery, but transformed the barn into a small museum, displaying Elena's story and the history of the 1973 strike. She and Sophia became close, planting a new row of vines in Elena's memory. Sometimes, at dusk, Claire thought she heard whispers in the vineyard, but they no longer scared her. They were Elena's voice, finally free, carried by the Napa breeze. As Claire stood by the old oak one evening, the setting sun painting the vines gold, she felt a weight lift. The truth, like the grapes, had ripened with time. Elena's story wasn't just a ghost tale. It was a call to never let silence bury justice. And in Napa Valley, where the earth held secrets, Claire knew she'd helped one soul rest at last.